3 days after Ethan disappeared. The police found his motorcycle parked outside an abandoned Victorian mansion. The engine was cold, but the front door was wide open. They searched every room. Ethan was gone. No blood, no footprints, nothing. But one strange phone call would later reveal how his nightmare had really begun. It was 2:37 a.m. After working a long overtime shift, Ethan Carter had finally fallen into a deep sleep inside his small apartment on the edge of Blackwood City. Suddenly, his phone started ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. The ringing stopped. A few seconds later, it started again. Still half asleep, Ethan reached for his phone and groaned. Who calls someone in the middle of the night? The caller ID froze him for a second. Uncle Victor. Ethan frowned. Uncle Victor? I've never heard Dad mention anyone by that name. Before he could ignore it, the phone rang again. He answered. Hello. A calm, tired voice replied. Ethan, this is Victor, your father's cousin. The old man coughed softly. I own an old mansion outside the city. I usually live overseas, but I came back a few days ago, and I've become terribly ill. There was a long silence. Then the voice continued. Your father told me you live nearby. You're the only family close enough to help me. Please, come tonight. I don't think I'll survive until morning. Ethan hesitated. Something about the man's voice felt strange. Almost as if he knew Ethan was suspicious, Victor quickly added, Don't call your father. I've already spoken to him. I'll text you my address. Please hurry. The line went dead. Seconds later, a message appeared on Ethan's phone. An address. Outside the city. Deep inside Raven Hollow Forest. Ethan stared at the screen. Every instinct told him not to go. But if an old family member truly needed help, how could he refuse? He grabbed his jacket, picked up his motorcycle keys, and stepped into the freezing night. End of part 1. The empty highway stretched endlessly through the darkness. Only Ethan's motorcycle headlight cut through the thick fog. The deeper he drove into Raven Hollow Forest, the quieter the world became. No passing cars, no houses, no streetlights, just endless pine trees and an uncomfortable silence. Almost 90 minutes later, his GPS suddenly announced, You have arrived. Ethan slowed to a stop. In front of him stood a massive Victorian mansion hidden behind a rusted iron gate. Its broken windows looked like dark, empty eyes staring back at him. Dead vines covered the walls. The front yard was filled with waist-high dead grass. It looked abandoned, as if nobody had lived there for decades. A cold breeze swept across the property. The iron gate slowly creaked open by itself. Ethan froze. Maybe the wind, he whispered to himself. Trying to calm his nerves, he stepped inside. As he reached for the front door, a voice echoed from somewhere behind him. Ethan. His heart nearly stopped. He turned around. Beneath a giant oak tree stood a tall man wearing a black suit and a wide-brimmed hat. One hand rested on an old wooden cane. The other held a burning cigarette. Its glowing red tip was the only color in the darkness. The man smiled. You made it, son. I'm Victor. Relieved, Ethan walked closer. Victor looked surprisingly healthy. His suit was spotless. His posture was perfect. Nothing about him suggested he was seriously ill. I thought you said you were sick, Ethan asked. Victor chuckled softly. Only when I stay in this house. That's why I never spend more than one night here. He looked toward the mansion. This place has a strange history. Then he smiled again. Come inside. It's freezing out here. As they walked toward the front door, Ethan noticed something strange. Victor was standing directly beneath the moonlight, but there was no shadow behind him. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. Still, he followed Victor into the mansion. The sound echoed through every hallway. Ethan jumped and quickly turned around. He grabbed the doorknob and pulled as hard as he could. It didn't move. Victor smiled calmly. Don't worry. This old house has a mind of its own. His voice was soft, but somehow, it made Ethan even more uncomfortable. Victor walked farther into the mansion. Come on, I'll show you around. Taking a deep breath, Ethan followed him. The inside of the mansion looked nothing like the outside. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. The wooden floors shined like polished glass. Expensive paintings covered every wall. Not a single speck of dust could be seen. This place looks brand new, Ethan said. I thought nobody lived here. Victor gave him a strange smile. I always keep my home ready for visitors. For a moment, Something about the way he said visitors made Ethan's stomach tighten. As they walked through the long hallway, Ethan noticed dozens of old family portraits hanging on the walls. Curious, he stepped closer. Every photograph looked at least 100 years old. But one thing immediately caught his attention. The same man appeared in every single picture. The same black suit, the same hat, the same smile. Victor. He looked exactly the same in every photo, as if he had never aged. Ethan stared at the pictures in disbelief. How is that possible? He whispered. Before he could think any further, the lights suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then everything went completely dark. For 3 long seconds, the mansion was silent. Then, a horrifying scream echoed from somewhere upstairs. It sounded like someone was begging for mercy. Ethan's heart started pounding. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Victor slowly lit another cigarette. Without even looking upstairs, he quietly replied, "Ignore it. Some memories never leave this house." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. For the first time, he realized coming here had been a terrible mistake. His heartbeat grew faster. Confused, he slowly looked toward one of the mansion's tall windows. From where he stood, he could clearly see the glowing lights of Blackwood City far in the distance. How is there no signal if the city is right there? He whispered. Victor smiled without looking back. "Phones never work inside this house," he said calmly. "You'll stop worrying about that soon enough." Something about his voice made Ethan uneasy. Victor pointed toward the living room. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll prepare dinner." Without waiting for a reply, he disappeared down the long hallway. A heavy silence filled the mansion. The only sound Ethan could hear was the slow ticking of an old grandfather clock somewhere in the house. He quickly pulled out his phone again. If he couldn't make a call, maybe he could record a video. He opened the camera and pointed it toward the hallway. The hallway was empty. Ethan lowered the phone. Victor was standing at the end of the hallway, quietly staring at him. Startled, Ethan raised the camera again. The hallway appeared empty once more. Victor wasn't visible on the screen. Ethan looked over the phone. Victor was still standing there, smiling. A cold shiver ran through Ethan's body. Before he could understand what he had just seen, a loud metallic noise echoed from somewhere inside the kitchen. It sounded as if several heavy pots had been thrown onto the floor. A few seconds later, everything became silent again. Then, a weak voice reached Ethan's ears. "Please, help me." It sounded like a frightened woman, barely above a whisper. Ethan held his breath. The voice came again. This time it sounded much closer. "He's coming." Without thinking, Ethan slowly walked toward the kitchen. Every step felt heavier than the last. As he reached the kitchen door, he suddenly heard something slowly dragging, its sharp nails across the other side of the door. Ethan stared at his phone. No signal. His heartbeat grew faster. He looked toward the mansion's tall windows. The glowing lights of Blackwood City were clearly visible in the distance. How is there no signal if the city is right there? He whispered. Victor smiled without turning around. "Phones never work inside this house," he said calmly. "You'll stop worrying about that soon enough." Something about his voice made Ethan uneasy. Victor pointed toward the living room. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll prepare dinner." Without waiting for a reply, he disappeared down the hallway. The mansion fell silent. The only sound Ethan could hear was the slow ticking of an old grandfather clock somewhere inside the house. He quickly pulled out his phone again. If he couldn't call his father, maybe he could at least record a video. He opened the camera and pointed it toward the hallway. The hallway looked empty. He lowered the phone. Victor was standing there, quietly staring at him. Startled, Ethan raised the camera again. The hallway was empty once more. Victor wasn't visible on the screen. Ethan slowly lowered the phone. Victor was still standing there, smiling. A cold shiver ran through Ethan's body. Before he could understand what had just happened, a loud metallic noise echoed from the kitchen. It sounded as if several heavy pots had crashed onto the floor. A few seconds later, everything became silent again. Then, a weak voice reached Ethan's ears. "Please, help me." It sounded like a frightened woman, barely louder than a whisper. Ethan held his breath. The voice came again. "He's coming." Without thinking, Ethan slowly walked toward the kitchen. Every step felt heavier than the last. His hand reached the cold brass doorknob. Just as he was about to open the door, the scratching on the other side suddenly stopped. Complete silence filled the mansion. Then a soft whisper came from the other side of the door. "Ethan, open the door." His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst out of his chest. Ethan slowly wrapped his fingers around the doorknob. For a few seconds, he couldn't hear anything. The scratching had stopped. The whisper was gone. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the kitchen door open. The room looked completely normal. Warm lights filled the kitchen. Fresh vegetables were neatly arranged on the counter. A large pot simmered quietly on the stove, filling the room with the smell of soup. Ethan frowned. Was I imagining everything? He whispered. Then his eyes dropped to the floor. Long scratch marks covered the old wooden planks. They looked fresh, as if something heavy had been dragged across the floor only moments ago. The marks led toward a large wooden pantry in the corner. Curious, Ethan slowly walked closer. His hand reached for the pantry door. Just before he touched it, Victor's voice came from directly behind him. "You really shouldn't open that." Ethan nearly screamed. He spun around so fast that he almost lost his balance. Victor stood only a few feet away, smiling calmly. In one hand, he held a sharp kitchen knife. In the other, he carried a bowl of chopped vegetables. A second later, Victor noticed Ethan staring at the knife. He laughed softly. "Relax," he said. "It's only for dinner." He placed the knife on the counter and continued cooking as if nothing strange had happened. Ethan forced himself to smile, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Victor never looked away from him. "Dinner is almost ready," he said. "Please don't wander around the house. Some doors are locked for a reason." The words echoed in Ethan's mind. A few minutes later, Victor turned his back to stir the soup. It was the chance Ethan had been waiting for. Without making a sound, he slipped out of the kitchen and hurried toward the front entrance. But the moment he reached the hallway, he froze. The front door was gone. The wall where it had been only minutes earlier was now covered with old wooden panels. There was no handle, no doorway, nothing. It was as if the house had erased every possible escape. Ethan slowly stepped backward, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then, a slow laugh echoed somewhere upstairs. It wasn't Victor's voice. It sounded like a child. Ethan looked toward the staircase. At the top of the stairs, a small figure stood perfectly still in the darkness. Before Ethan could see its face, it took one slow step forward. Ethan couldn't move. The small figure at the top of the staircase remained perfectly still. Its face was hidden behind long, tangled black hair. Only its bare feet were visible beneath an old white dress. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then the little girl slowly tilted her head. A quiet giggle echoed through the mansion. It sounded innocent, but there was something horribly wrong about it. Ethan took one cautious step backward. The girl suddenly disappeared. She didn't run. She didn't turn around. She simply wasn't there anymore. A cold wave of fear rushed through Ethan's body. "What is happening in this place?" he whispered. Just then, Victor's voice echoed from the dining room. "Ethan, dinner is ready." His calm voice somehow felt even more terrifying than the little girl. Ethan had no choice. He slowly walked toward the dining room. A large wooden table stood in the center of the room. 2 plates had already been placed on it. A pair of tall candles flickered gently between them. Everything looked strangely elegant. Victor pulled out a chair. "Please, have a seat." Ethan sat down, trying to hide the fear on his face. Victor smiled. "You remind me of your father. He was always curious too." Ethan looked up. "You've met my father recently?" Victor didn't answer. Instead, he slowly poured water into Ethan's glass. "Eat first," he said. "Questions can wait." Ethan glanced at the plates. Both were covered with dark red cloths. "What's for dinner?" he asked nervously. Victor's smile grew wider. "Something very fresh." At that exact moment, the lights went out. The room was swallowed by darkness. Only the candle flames remained. Ethan heard slow footsteps circling around the table, but Victor was no longer sitting across from him. The footsteps stopped directly behind his chair. A cold breath touched the back of his neck. Then Victor whispered, "Don't turn around." Victor's whisper lingered in Ethan's ears. "Don't turn around." Every muscle in Ethan's body locked in place. He could feel someone's icy breath just inches from the back of his neck. The room was completely silent. Then, the candles went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Ethan shut his eyes and held his breath. A few endless seconds passed. Suddenly, the lights came back. Victor was sitting exactly where he had been before, calm, smiling, as if he had never moved. "You look frightened," Victor said softly. "Please, eat before your dinner gets cold." Ethan swallowed hard. His trembling hands reached toward the large silver tray in front of him. A dark red cloth covered whatever was underneath. Victor watched him without blinking. "Go ahead," he whispered. "I prepared it especially for you." With shaking fingers, Ethan slowly lifted the cloth. The color drained from his face. His breathing stopped. Whatever rested on the tray was impossible. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. He stumbled backward, knocking his chair onto the floor. "No, this can't be real," he whispered. Victor didn't react. He simply smiled. "Reality is a strange thing, Ethan. Sometimes the house shows people exactly what they fear the most." Ethan looked at the tray again. This time, it was empty. There was nothing there. His heartbeat echoed inside his ears. "Am I losing my mind?" he asked himself. Just then, a soft laugh drifted through the dining room. It wasn't Victor. It sounded like a little girl. Ethan slowly turned toward the hallway. The same little girl stood there once again. Her face was hidden behind her long black hair. She slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the second floor. Without saying a single word, she turned around and disappeared into the darkness. Victor quietly picked up his glass. Without even looking at Ethan, he smiled and said, "She's waiting for you." Victor's words echoed inside Ethan's mind. "She's waiting for you." Before Ethan could ask another question, the little girl's laughter floated down from the second floor once again. This time, it sounded much closer, almost as if she wanted Ethan to follow her. Victor quietly stood up from his chair. He picked up the empty plates and walked toward the kitchen. He never looked back. "Some answers can only be found upstairs," he said calmly. "But remember, not every door should be opened." Then he disappeared into the darkness. Ethan stood alone in the dining room. His heart told him to run, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Slowly, he walked toward the staircase. Each wooden step creaked beneath his feet. The air grew colder with every step he climbed. When he finally reached the second floor, a long hallway stretched before him. Old family portraits covered both walls. As Ethan walked past them, he suddenly stopped. Every portrait showed the same mansion, the same rooms, the same staircase, but something was different. In every painting, a different person stood beside Victor. Men, women, even children. All of them wore terrified expressions. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. He stepped closer to one of the portraits. The paint looked old, at least 100 years old. Then his eyes widened. The last portrait wasn't old at all. The paint still looked fresh. His hands began to shake. The man standing beside Victor was Ethan. He was wearing the same jacket, the same jeans, even the same watch on his wrist. It looked exactly like him. At the bottom of the painting, a date had been written in black ink. "Tomorrow." Ethan stumbled backward in disbelief. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible." At that exact moment, a bedroom door at the end of the hallway slowly opened by itself. A warm yellow light spilled into the dark hallway. From inside the room, the little girl's voice whispered softly, "I've been waiting for you." Ethan stood frozen in the hallway. The bedroom door remained half open. A warm yellow light spilled onto the old wooden floor. The little girl's voice echoed once more, "I've been waiting for you." Every instinct told Ethan to run, but he couldn't. It felt as if the mansion itself was pulling him toward that room. Taking a slow breath, he stepped closer. The old door creaked open even wider. The bedroom looked surprisingly normal. There was an antique bed beside the window. A rocking chair moved gently on its own. An old music box played a soft lullaby. Everything seemed peaceful until Ethan noticed dozens of drawings covering the walls. Every drawing showed the same mansion, the same staircase, the same man in the black suit. Victor. Some drawings showed frightened people trying to escape. Others showed them disappearing into complete darkness. Then Ethan saw the final drawing. His blood ran cold. It showed him standing inside this very bedroom. Behind him, Victor was smiling. And beside the picture, written in childish handwriting, were the words, "He came just like the others." Ethan quickly stepped away from the wall. "Who drew these?" he whispered. A tiny voice answered from somewhere behind him. "I did." Ethan turned around. The little girl was standing beside the window. For the first time, he could see her face. She looked no older than 8 years old. Her face was pale. Her eyes were filled with fear. She wasn't smiling. She looked trapped. Tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. "You have to leave," she whispered, "before he knows you're here." Ethan's heart filled with hope. "Who are you?" he asked. The little girl looked toward the bedroom door as if someone was listening. Then she whispered, "My name is Lily. I've been trapped inside this house for 70 years. Victor doesn't let anyone leave." Before Ethan could ask another question, the music box suddenly stopped. The room became completely silent. Lily's terrified expression changed instantly. She looked toward the hallway. Her voice became shaky. "He's coming." Then, she disappeared. At that exact moment, slow footsteps echoed outside the bedroom. Someone was slowly walking down the hallway, and each step was getting closer to Ethan's door. The footsteps outside the bedroom grew louder. Slow, steady. Each step echoed through the silent hallway. Ethan looked toward the door, unable to breathe. Lily suddenly grabbed his wrist. Her hand felt ice cold. "Don't let him see you," she whispered. Without waiting for an answer, she pulled Ethan toward a large wooden wardrobe in the corner of the room. The door opened with a soft creak. "Hide," she said. Ethan climbed inside just as the bedroom door slowly opened. Through a narrow crack in the wardrobe, he watched Victor enter the room. Victor looked around without saying a word. His smile had disappeared. For the first time, his face looked completely emotionless. He slowly walked toward the window where Lily had been standing only seconds earlier. But she was gone. Victor took a deep breath. "You've been talking to our guest," he said quietly. No one answered. He continued walking around the room. His footsteps stopped only a few inches from the wardrobe. Ethan held his breath. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure Victor could hear it. Victor rested one hand on the wardrobe door. For several long seconds, he didn't move. Then, he smiled. "Fear has a very interesting smell," he whispered. "And tonight, this house is full of it." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. He silently prayed that Victor would walk away. Instead, Victor slowly knocked 3 times on the wardrobe door. Knock. A few seconds later. Knock. Then one final time. Knock. The room fell silent again. After what felt like forever, Victor quietly laughed. "Not yet," he whispered to himself. His footsteps slowly faded into the hallway. Ethan waited another full minute before opening the wardrobe. The bedroom was empty, but something had changed. Written across the bedroom mirror were fresh words that hadn't been there before. "You should have left when you had the chance." Ethan stared at the message in horror. Then he noticed something even worse. The bedroom door was now locked from the outside. He rushed toward it and pulled the handle with all his strength. It didn't move. Just then, the old music box suddenly began playing again by itself. This time, the melody was slower, and between the notes, a child's voice quietly whispered, "He's behind you." Victor's voice echoed through the locked bedroom door. "Ethan, dinner isn't over yet." Silence followed. Ethan didn't answer. He slowly stepped away from the door, trying not to make a sound. Then, the doorknob began turning on its own. Once, twice, slowly, as if someone outside was testing the lock. Ethan's breathing became shallow. Lily quickly grabbed his arm. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. The doorknob suddenly stopped moving. A few seconds later, Victor laughed softly from the other side. "You can hide from me," he said calmly. "But this house always tells me where my guests are." His footsteps slowly faded down the hallway. Neither Ethan nor Lily moved. Almost a full minute passed before Lily finally spoke. "We don't have much time." She walked to the old fireplace and knelt beside it. Using both hands, she pulled on one of the loose bricks. A quiet click echoed through the room. Part of the fireplace slowly slid sideways, revealing a narrow passage hidden inside the wall. Cold air drifted out of the darkness. Ethan stared at the secret tunnel. "Where does it lead?" he asked. Lily looked into the darkness. "Beneath the mansion. That's where Victor keeps the truth." Without another word, she stepped inside. Ethan followed her. The hidden passage was damp and unbelievably narrow. The air smelled old. The only sound was the dripping of water somewhere ahead. After several minutes, they reached a small underground room. Dust covered everything. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor. In the center of the room stood an old wooden desk. On top of it rested a thick leather journal. The cover was covered in dust, as if no one had touched it for decades. Ethan carefully opened it. The first few pages listed names. Hundreds of names. Every page ended the same way. Never returned. Ethan's hands began to shake. Then he reached the final page. His own name had already been written there. Under it, someone had written today's date. Before Ethan could react, the journal slowly turned one more page by itself. A single sentence appeared in dark ink. "You're already too late." At that exact moment, the hidden passage behind them slowly closed with a deep, grinding sound. The room fell into complete silence. Then, a familiar voice echoed from somewhere in the darkness. Victor chuckled softly. "Welcome to the place where every story ends." Victor's voice echoed through the underground chamber. "Welcome to the place where every story ends." Ethan quickly turned around. The room was empty. Only darkness surrounded him. Lily grabbed his arm. "Don't listen to him," she whispered. "He wants you to panic." Ethan took a slow breath and looked around the underground chamber. Dust covered every corner. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor. Then he noticed dozens of framed photographs hanging on the stone wall. Every picture showed a different visitor standing outside the mansion. Each one was smiling, but on every photo, Victor stood beside them, looking exactly the same. Not a single wrinkle, not a single gray hair, as if time had never touched him. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Who? What is he?" Lily looked down. "He wasn't always like this." Many years ago, Victor owned this mansion. He became obsessed with living forever. He believed the house could grant eternal life. But the house demanded something in return. Ethan felt a chill run through his body. What did it want? Lily slowly raised her eyes. New souls. Every time someone enters this mansion, the house grows stronger, and Victor stays alive. Ethan finally understood. The phone call, the fake illness. Everything had been a trap from the beginning. He clenched his fists. "Then we have to destroy this place." For the first time, Lily smiled. "There is one way." She pointed toward a heavy iron door at the end of the chamber. "Behind that door is the heart of the house. As long as it exists, Victor can never die." Ethan walked toward the old iron door. The closer he got, the colder the air became. His hand slowly reached for the rusty handle. Just before he touched it, Victor's voice echoed from directly behind him. "If you open that door, there will be no turning back." Victor's voice echoed behind Ethan. "If you open that door, there will be no turning back." Ethan slowly turned around. Victor stood at the entrance of the chamber. His black suit was spotless. His hat cast a shadow over his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't smiling. The room fell completely silent. Victor took one slow step forward. "You still have a choice," he said calmly. "Walk away, and you'll never have to know the truth." Ethan looked at Lily. She slowly shook her head. "Don't believe him," she whispered. "He lies to everyone." Victor sighed. "I've heard those words for decades." He glanced at Lily with a look that almost seemed sad. "I offered all of them the same choice. None of them listened." Ethan stepped in front of Lily. "I'm ending this tonight." Victor smiled again, then opened the door. "See what has been feeding this house all these years." Ethan took a deep breath. He grabbed the old iron handle. It felt freezing cold. With all his strength, he pulled. The heavy door slowly creaked open. A powerful gust of icy air rushed out. Beyond the doorway was a circular stone chamber. In the very center, a glowing black crystal floated above an ancient pedestal. Dark shadows moved slowly inside it, as if they were trapped beneath the surface. The entire mansion began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. The crystal pulsed like a living heart. Once, twice. With every pulse, Ethan heard hundreds of faint whispers filling the room. "Help us. Please. Don't leave us here." Lily's eyes filled with tears. Those are the souls Victor couldn't let go. If the crystal is destroyed, they'll finally be free. Ethan slowly walked toward it. The whispers grew louder with every step. Then, the crystal suddenly changed. Its dark surface became clear like glass. Instead of trapped souls, Ethan saw his own parents. They were standing outside their home. His father kept calling his name. His mother was crying. "Ethan, please come home." His legs froze. The voices sounded so real. He instinctively reached a hand toward the crystal. Behind him, Victor quietly smiled. That's how the house chooses its next soul. Ethan's hand trembled as he reached toward the glowing black crystal. His parents' voices echoed through the chamber. "Ethan, please come home." His mother's tears looked real. His father's desperate expression broke his heart. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was. He took another step toward the crystal. Then, Lily suddenly grabbed his arm. "Don't touch it," she screamed. The vision instantly shattered. His parents vanished. The crystal turned black again. Ethan stared at it in disbelief. It wasn't real. He whispered. Lily slowly shook her head. "The house creates whatever your heart wants most. That's how it traps people forever." Behind them, Victor began clapping slowly. "Very impressive, Lily," he said with a smile. 70 years. And you still haven't given up." Lily stepped in front of Ethan. "Don't listen to him." Victor sighed. "You still don't understand, do you?" He looked directly at Ethan. "I never wanted this curse. I tried to destroy the crystal many years ago. The house chose me instead." Ethan frowned. "You're lying." Victor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he slowly removed his black hat. For the first time, Ethan could clearly see his face. It wasn't the face of a monster. It was the face of a tired old man, filled with regret. "Every person who enters this mansion believes I'm the villain," Victor said quietly. "But the real evil has always been this house." The crystal suddenly pulsed again. A deep roar echoed through the chamber. The walls began to crack. Dark shadows poured out of the crystal like thick smoke. They spread across the floor, moving toward Ethan. Lily's terrified voice echoed through the chamber. "It's awake. We don't have much time." Victor turned toward the crystal. For the first time, real fear appeared in his eyes. "Run," he shouted. "If it escapes the chamber, no one will ever leave this house alive." Victor's warning echoed through the chamber. "Run!" The black crystal pulsed again. This time, the entire mansion shook violently. Chunks of stone crashed from the ceiling. Long cracks spread across the walls. Dark shadows poured out of the crystal, twisting through the air like living smoke. The temperature dropped instantly. Ethan could barely breathe. Lily grabbed his hand. "We have to destroy it now," she cried. Victor stepped in front of them. Without hesitation, he faced the growing darkness. "I'll hold it back," he said. "You only get one chance." The shadows rushed toward Victor. For the first time, he fought back. A blinding flash of light burst from the strange symbol around his neck. The shadows screamed and pulled away for a moment. Ethan stared in shock. "Why are you helping us?" Victor kept his eyes on the crystal. "Because I'm tired," he whispered. "I've watched innocent people die for far too long. Tonight, this nightmare ends." The crystal pulsed even faster. The whispers inside it became deafening. Hundreds of trapped voices cried out together. "Free us, please." Lily pointed toward the pedestal, the symbol beneath the crystal. "Break it, and the house will lose its power." Ethan looked down. Ancient symbols were carved into the stone beneath the crystal. A single crack already ran through the center. He searched the chamber desperately. Near the broken wall, he spotted a heavy iron sledgehammer covered in dust. Ignoring the falling debris, Ethan ran toward it. He lifted it with both hands. It was far heavier than he expected. Behind him, Victor was being pushed backward by the shadows. His knees hit the floor. The darkness slowly surrounded him. He looked at Ethan one last time. "Don't hesitate," he shouted. "Whatever happens, don't stop." Ethan tightened his grip on the sledgehammer. He ran toward the pedestal with everything he had left. The shadows noticed him. They suddenly changed direction and rushed straight toward Ethan. He raised the hammer high above his head. With a desperate scream, he swung it down with all his strength. Just before the hammer struck the ancient symbol, everything around him went completely silent. Everything around Ethan went completely silent. The hammer stopped only inches above the ancient symbol. The shadows froze. The whispers disappeared. For one terrifying second, time itself seemed to stand still. Then, a voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't Victor. It wasn't Lily. It came from the mansion itself. "Make your choice. Destroy me, and everyone trapped inside will be free. Spare me, and you will walk out alive." Ethan looked toward Victor. He was barely standing. The shadows had almost completely surrounded him. Lily shook her head. "Don't listen," she cried. "The house always lies." Without another second of hesitation, Ethan brought the hammer down with all his strength. The ancient symbol shattered. A blinding flash of white light exploded through the chamber. The black crystal cracked. Once, twice. Then it broke into thousands of glowing pieces. A deafening roar echoed through the mansion. The walls began collapsing. The dark shadows dissolved into the air. For the first time, the frightened whispers turned into voices of relief. One by one, the trapped souls disappeared into the light. Lily smiled through her tears. "We're finally free." Her body slowly faded into countless tiny lights before disappearing forever. Victor looked at Ethan. The fear was gone from his face. Only peace remained. "Thank you," he whispered. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he vanished into the light. The mansion continued collapsing around Ethan. He ran through the crumbling hallways as pieces of the ceiling crashed behind him. Just as the last wall gave way, he threw himself through the front entrance. A second later, the entire mansion collapsed into silence. The next morning, police officers searched the ruins after receiving reports of a loud explosion during the night. They found Ethan sitting alone near the old front gate, covered in dust, unable to speak. When the officers asked what had happened, Ethan looked toward the ruins. There was nothing left. No mansion, no photographs, no underground chamber, only broken stones and overgrown trees. Weeks later, life slowly returned to normal, but every single night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., Ethan's phone rang. The caller ID always showed the same name, Victor. He never answered, until one night. The ringing suddenly stopped. A text message appeared on the screen. "Thank you for setting us free." Ethan smiled for the first time since that night. Then, the phone vibrated one last time. A new message appeared beneath it, but something else escaped before the house fell. The screen went black. Behind Ethan, someone whispered, "Turn around."